When someone tries to humiliate you in public, do you tend to freeze up with embarrassment, or does your blood start to boil, ready for a row? Most people buy into the naive myth that the best response to an insult is to fly off the handle or fire back with a witty comeback on the spot. The counterintuitive truth is that losing your cool only proves the jibe hit home, whereas surgical silence in a simple question can absolutely wreck the attacker's reputation in a matter of seconds. Behavioral psychology shows that whoever masters that high-status stance in a moment of social confrontation doesn't just neutralize the disrespect therein. Then they end up being seen as the most unshakable, most respected person in the whole room. So why keep carrying the embarrassment home with you, stewing over conversations for days on end, when you could learn the exact tactical playbook to disarm any public attack and get the crowd to turn on whoever tried to put you down? Topic 1. The power of the cold pause and the ice barrier stopping emotional bait. Look, when a verbal attack happens in public, the aggressor is making a pretty obvious bet. They want to knock the victim off balance and drag out an impulsive negative reaction. Most people fall straight into that social trap, stammering, laughing awkwardly to cover the embarrassment, or blowing their top right there in the pub or at work. But someone who's mastered emotional control knows the real first response isn't a word at all. It's an absolute calculated silence of exactly 2 seconds. Think of it as putting up an instant ice wall. The person fires off the provocation expecting a scene, but instead runs headlong into a complete emotional vacuum that sends the tension straight back into the room. In that brief pause, the sharp observer keeps their expression totally neutral. No rapid blinking, no hint of defensiveness. Looking at the aggressor the way you'd look at a toddler, having a strop and knocking a cup off the table. It's a surgical pause that cools the whole room down and forces every witness to clock just how ridiculous the attack really was. That cold stance breaks the rhythm of the confrontation and instantly strips away any power or authority the aggressor was trying to project in front of the group. As the silence stretches past 2 seconds, the air gets thick and the discomfort switches sides, moving off the victim and landing squarely on the shoulders of whoever tried to humiliate them. And it's exactly in that moment when the whole room's holding its breath and the aggressor starts realizing the plans backfired spectacularly that the real psychological game kicks off. Topic 2. The mirror question strategy. Forcing the aggressor to explain the joke the moment that silence makes the aggressor hesitate. It's time to bring out the mirror question technique to dismantle disrespect dressed up as a joke. It's pretty common, especially in British culture, to come across that veiled sarcasm or those passive-aggressive digs thrown out under the guise of harmless banter between mates. The trick here isn't to fire back with more sarcasm, it's to shine the spotlight straight onto the nastiness of the joke, with a simple, completely flat question like, "What exactly do you mean by that?" Forced to actually explain the reasoning behind an offensive joke, the person suddenly finds themselves stuck between a rock and a hard place with no quick way out. If they try to explain the insult in detail in front of everyone, their nasty intent gets exposed in the most childish, ridiculous way possible for the whole audience to see. If they backtrack instead and claim it was just a joke, they're publicly admitting the comment flopped and lose the group's respect on the spot, while whoever asked the question stays firmly in the driving seat. This surgical approach disarms the aggression without ever having to raise your voice or lose your composure for even a second. The mirror hands full responsibility for the exchange straight back to the provocateur, turning what was meant to be a public attack into an embarrassing social stumble for them instead. And while they're left stammering out an excuse to save face in front of everyone, the stage is perfectly set to reveal what was really driving that behavior in the first place. Topic 3. Exposing motive over content, diagnosing insecurity in front of the audience. At this stage, the truly wise move is to shift the focus away from what was actually said and onto the real motive behind the person's decision to attack in public. After all, emotionally secure, mature people feel absolutely no need to put others down at a meeting table or in a packed pub just to stand out. When someone goes looking for a public humiliation, all they're really doing is shouting to the world that they're desperately craving attention and social validation, exposing a deep insecurity in front of every witness to the scene, rather than getting drawn into debating the shallow jibe that was said. The strategic observer calmly diagnoses the aggressor's behavior live, with a serene calm and just a touch of compassion. A line delivered in a firm, unhurried voice, something like, "You seem really keen to get a reaction out of me today, or are you alright, mate?" flips the whole narrative of the conversation on its head instantly. In that moment, the victim role vanishes and is replaced by the figure of the mature adult who's simply observing a colleague having an uncontrolled emotional wobble. That flip completely diffuses all the venom in what was said and turns the supposed attack into a clear display of weakness from the provocateur instead. The audience present immediately clocks who genuinely holds status in the room and who's the one desperately fishing for validation. And with the power dynamic now completely flipped in your favor, all that's left is to close out the exchange in masterful fashion and reclaim your social territory. Topic 4. The high-status dismissal and territory reclaim, leaving the aggressor empty. With the power dynamic now fully restored in your favor, it's time to shut the confrontation down with a proper high-status dismissal. Most people make the mistake of dragging the debate out and trying to land one last killer comeback, which only drags their own standing down to the provocateur's level. The true master of verbal self-defense prefers the elegance of someone who has nothing left to prove to anyone, closing the matter with surgical precision before simply moving on. To tie the whole thing off with a bow, all it takes is a calm nod paired with a short, definitive line, something like "right then, moving on," turning your attention straight back to the group. That attitude makes it crystal clear that the attempted humiliation carried absolutely no weight and was completely irrelevant to your composure. The aggressors left standing in the middle of the room, stewing in their own frustration, while everyone watching takes in your unshakable, leader-like presence. Once you've mastered this sequence, the cold reaction, the mirror question, and the elegant dismissal, you guarantee that no public attack can ever dent your social value or your peace of mind again. You stop being an easy target for other people's disrespect and become the most respected, most feared presence in the room instead. And now that we've laid out each of these practical steps for neutralizing the worst put-downs in front of others, we're ready to tie it all together right at the start of an unforgettable story. Conclusion: carrying on accepting disrespect in silence, or lowering yourself into heated arguments every time someone tries to put you down in public, is a dangerous choice for your reputation. You weren't born to be an easy target for other people's insecurities, nor to let tasteless jokes wreck your authority and your peace of mind in social settings. The cold silence, the mirror question, and the motive diagnosis aren't just abstract ideas. They're a genuine psychological shield to help you keep your dignity intact and take full control of any room you're in. So why keep carrying the weight of embarrassment home with you, when you could decide, starting today, to be the most respected presence in the room? Have a think about this. If you keep reacting impulsively, laughing awkwardly at insults, or letting people walk all over your boundaries with zero consequences, what's your confidence in your career going to look like 5 years from now? Are you going to keep letting cheap shots chip away at your confidence in front of others, or are you ready to switch on that high-status presence and disarm any attacker in seconds? Real social power doesn't belong to whoever shouts loudest or tries hardest to look tough. It belongs to the people who stay calm and rational while the provocateur destroys themselves. The decision to stop being a target is entirely yours, but remember, the respect you get from the world is exactly the size of the boundaries you're willing to enforce. If you're determined to never freeze up in the face of a verbal attack again, want to master psychological self-defense, and fancy learning the deeper strategies in social intelligence and body language, subscribe to the channel right now and turn on notifications. By joining our community today, you're setting yourself up for continuous learning to become someone unshakable, highly respected, and genuinely feared in any interaction. Don't let this knowledge go to waste. Try the 2-second cold pause technique next time you witness some disrespect. Feel the tables turn in real life, and we'll see you in the next video.